Hello everybody, and welcome to another sensible car review from me, JayEmm. Let me begin this one with a simple question. What do you think is the most popular car on sale in Britain today? This is new cars we're talking about. I want you to have a guess, and I'd like you to pop down to the comment section below and just put in what you think is Britain's #1 best-selling car. Have you done that now? Right. It is the Ford Fiesta. Now, I was actually pleasantly surprised when I found that out, because that's actually an incredibly sensible car to have as the #1 best-selling vehicle. However, if you go a little bit further down the list, you will find in #7 position this, the Kia Sportage. It is the second best-selling SUV/crossover in the United Kingdom after the Nissan Qashqai, and in January, this car outsold the BMW 3 Series. That, I know, is a very hard concept to grasp for petrol-heady types like myself, and I'm sure many of you watching. But the rise of Kia in recent years has been meteoric, and it's cars like the Sportage that have been at the heart of it. In the UK, the importance of the Sportage for Kia cannot be understated. It is their best seller by a mile, making up 35% of their total sales. My next door neighbour has one, and that replaced his old Sportage. The house we were doing drive-bys today is, I know for a fact, a £1 million house, and they have a Kia Sportage. My sister is currently drawing up a list of potential new cars for her, and she quite fancies a Kia Sportage. The third generation of Sportage sold 100,000 units in the UK, and that's a dramatic increase on the second generation, which shifted about a tenth as many. That's really impressive growth in a very short space of time. Now, no doubt that's due to the fact that this whole segment has just exploded. People no longer look for hatchbacks or three-box saloons as their default choice. It is crossovers or SUVs that people want. So what is it about the Sportage that draws people? It's not a bad-looking car. It's not really an especially attractive vehicle, but in this market segment, I think it looks as good as one could possibly hope. If you go for an example such as this, which is the GT Line S, it is utterly and completely loaded with tech. If you've watched any of my previous Kia reviews, the information you're about to hear won't surprise you at all. But if you're not much of a Kia fan, then this might come as something of a shock, especially if you're used to German cars. With the GT Line S, which is the top trim level, you get the following as standard: adaptive cruise control, heated and cooled front seats, heated rear seats, opening panoramic sunroof, these larger alloy wheels, sat-nav, Bluetooth, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, LED headlights, electric memory seats, a JBL sound system, and 360-degree parking sensors. Now, I feel like pointing out the fact that I recently drove a £100,000 Range Rover, a car that costs more than triple this one, and that did not have a 360-degree parking camera on it. That, I think, shows you what amazing value this Kia is. Now, the interior is not of the highest quality. There's quite a few little bits of harsh, scratchy stuff, but for a more entry-level car, I find that kind of forgivable. The trim levels available in the Sportage are as follows. You have 1, 2, GT Line, 4, and GT Line S. The GT line is designed at the customer who prioritises sportier features, the 4 at the customer who wants more luxury, and this GT Line S then gives you everything that those have and a bit more. The most popular model ordered in the last 2 months has been the 2 trim. Now, that comes in at around about £25,000, and it has features such as 17-inch alloys over the 16-inch standard, a TomTom powered sat-nav, privacy glass in the back, a slightly better cloth interior, roof bars, reversing sensors, and a few other features. The second most popular is then this, the GT Line S with the turbo petrol. Interestingly, it is now petrol models which dominate sales, a real reversal from a few years ago when it looked like diesel was going to make up nearly all of the marketplace. This one's the 1.6 litre petrol, which puts out about 170 horsepower, and it's combined here with Kia's own 7-speed dual clutch transmission. The GT Line S also comes with suspension tuning, which is bespoke to that trim level. That's probably my first negative point about this car. It does ride just a little bit too harshly for my liking. However, like so very many Kias, this actually drives superbly. This is not the kind of car that should be fun at all to drive. It really shouldn't, and if it wasn't, I wouldn't hold that against it. But this is absolutely brilliant. Now, it's geared very short, and that means that up until about 50 or 60 mile an hour, it's actually pretty sprightly, which is probably what's important to most people. Beyond that, though, if you're trying to push beyond sort of 60, 70, well, it's just not that quick. The car weighs about 1.6 tons, and it's not especially torquey. However, the gearbox does an excellent impression of being a torque converter auto, which is a very rare trick for a DCT to pull off, and that means that for driving around town, it's lovely, it's smooth, and it's relatively comfortable and cosseting. The front seats are electric with lumbar support as well for the driver, but not for the peasants in the other seats. Load space in this car is fairly decent. Now, I call this category of vehicle the shoulda bought a Golf category, because for most people, when you look at it, they don't really do much or offer much that a Golf doesn't, save for being slightly taller. However, if we use a Golf as the sort of gold standard and metric, the Kia performs fairly well. The Kia has a similar amount of space to a Golf, actually a little bit more depending on the Golf you're looking at, and importantly, the boot floor is fairly low and there's no lip, so loading things into it is very simple and easy. This car has, again, part of the GT Line S package, an electrically operated tailgate which you can open and close on the key or with the button in the back, and that is very useful if you're out shopping. The seats fold completely flat, giving you loads of storage when you need it. Again, it's not cavernous, and the reality is that most decent estate cars, especially if you get to the sort of C or E class, will give you more space. But for daily duties, this gives you enough for most people. Manoeuvring this car is very easy. You can still see some of the bonnet, and it feels reassuringly narrow. On tight little country roads like this, there are a lot of cars that just feel, well, a bit out of their depth, and larger vehicles like Kia's own Sorento, Range Rovers and so on do feel like they're just not quite at home on this kind of road, but the Sportage feels perfectly sized. Thanks to the big sunroof and the huge amount of glass in the passenger window at the back, it's also a pretty nice place to be. My buddy Darren, who's been helping me with this review, is 6'2", and he can sit himself behind himself with both legroom and headroom to spare. That sporty suspension, the harder you press, the better it gets, which is a very odd thing because it's just not natural for this car. But that does mean that maybe when you've left the family at home, you can have far more fun in it than you would think possible. I would suggest to anybody looking at this kind of car to give the Kia Ceed a good try, because in reality it's just as practical, the Pro Ceed perhaps even more so, and of course that comes with the added benefits of being a lower, easier to get into car and everything else. On the subject of being easy to get into, the doors at the back are also relatively large. No, it's no long wheelbase S-Class or anything like that, but if you have elderly relatives that don't have full mobility, it can make life a little bit easier to get them in there, and then that nice airy rear makes it a little bit easier and a little bit more comfortable for longer journeys. It's my experience that cars with panoramic sunroofs are a lot better for nervous passengers in the back and generally make them feel a little bit more at ease and a little bit less likely to decorate the interior of your vehicle. The reality is that a lot of people buying one of these will not be buying them new, and I appreciate the fact that over £30,000 is still quite a lot of money for a car. That's where Kia's 7-year warranty really does come in. And I know that people in the comment section will argue as to the value of said warranty, but I can only speak on the experience of people I know that have owned one of these, and the feedback I've had has generally been positive. My neighbour bought their second one of these simply because the dealership were great and made sure that they made best use of that warranty, and the car was always properly looked after. He, by the way, is a mechanic, so he's not the sort of person that's going to be easily fobbed off with things either, and he had no trouble whatsoever. This particular vehicle is also all-wheel drive. Now, it's an odd thing, because if you'd ask me, I would tell you very readily that there is absolutely no need whatsoever to give a car of this size, power and type four-wheel drive. But the market dictates it. People insist on fitting all sorts of vehicles with four-wheel drive now because they think that one day to get little Timmy to school, they are going to have to do the Paris-Dakar. And, I mean, while it's totally unnecessary, I guess it's a good thing that Kia offer it, because it is certainly going to be the thing that people buy into. There are a few signs in this car of the Sportage being a model that's now a few years old. The centre screen here does everything you would conceivably want it to. However, it is a little bit smaller than the competition, and it's just not as snazzy as some of the other rivals, especially the German ones. Likewise, down here you still have a pair of traditional analog dials with a small digital screen betwixt them. In terms of driver modes, the Sportage offers just the two: normal and sport. Sport changes a few things, weightens the steering up, changes the gear shift and accelerator profiles, and for entertaining sporty driving, it is actually a button worth pressing. 99% sure it doesn't change anything suspension related, because I'm pretty sure that is all passive. In terms of suspension setup, this car has a McPherson strut at the front with multi-link at the rear, which is not bad at this price point. If you do want to change gears yourself, it's all right, but the truth is, with this turbocharged engine, there's just no benefit to revving it out, and so I think the best thing to do really is just leave it in sport mode and let it do its own thing. I don't know if it's available as an option, but if I were to buy one of these, my preference would be to get the GT Line S, but see if they could do it without the sport suspension, and then just put perhaps even some slightly small wheels on it, and that really would fix the major issue I have with this car. I just want it to be a little comfier. However, there is otherwise very little I can really fault with the car. The main bit of the Sportage's design that I really don't like is the placement of the indicators on the back. They are basically at the bottom of the car, and I've followed a number of these before and been very confused about where they're going, only to realise that they are actually indicating. Quite why Kia's engineers thought to put them all the way down there, I have absolutely no idea, but it is a very nonsensical design choice in a car that's otherwise pretty sensible. Although I've no experience of it, I know that the Mazda CX-5, which my sister recently tested, does have a slightly larger boot, but they seem to have got that space from the cabin. Because my brother-in-law is 6'4", interior cabin space is a priority, and the CX-5 apparently just doesn't score very well on that front. As for the Qashqai, I really can't speak, and I will soon be doing a review on the Kadjar to see how that particular vehicle compares. But in truth, as a sort of do anything car, the Sportage, as much as I hate this category of car, does do everything. There's nothing really that can't be done with it. I mean, I'm really enjoying my time with it. It's a fun car to have, far more fun than I would expect. It's not as good on fuel as I would hope. I've been averaging just over 30 to the gallon, but unfortunately that's something I've been noticing with cars from all manufacturers recently. The new regulations have meant that they just aren't as efficient as they once were, and so that's just something we're unfortunately going to have to get used to. I have driven the hybrid diesel version, and it's got a useful amount of poke in it, so if you want something with a little bit more capability, a little bit more acceleration, that would probably be my choice. But this petrol, and I know a lot of people who really want to buy into a petrol, actually does the job very well, better than I thought that it might. So there we have it, the Kia Sportage, a car that is very usable, very practical, and as it happens, very difficult to dislike. And perhaps more importantly, unlike certain other crossover vehicles, Nissan Juke, I'm looking at you, this one does actually have enough space in it to put both people and things in it, which is nice. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.